Black history moments are actually American history stories. And the wonderful thing about Black history moments and just the time we're living in today, these are stories that were never told before, that are part of American life.
We were filmed about our program, the African American Male Initiative, and those videos were put on social media. I did one, and my coworker, Mark DeWitt, who was the other coordinator of the African American Male Initiative, did a video. They got a lot of response. I remember going home thinking, what if we did this with Black history?
Sean and I were talking, and she's like, I'm gonna ask the new marketing guy if we can do, these spots. And I'm like, man, like, go for it. Yeah, history's my thing. Like, sure. And it took off from there.
Black history moments offers people a glimpse of people like Henrietta Lacks. We find out about the Green Book and Sally Hemings and people like Ona Judge. You've got these stories that are American history stories, American stories of people and events that are very important, that say a lot about who we are as Americans, that have never been told. And these snippets are just a glimpse into that. And that's why they're important.
Well, I know that depending on where you go to school, you may not celebrate or know much about Black History Month.
The fact that it's digestible is good. That way we know students will pay attention. The fact that they're short is great. But the fact that it's feeding their curiosity and making them dig a little deeper to where I'm saying, hey, do you want to do a Black History Moment? Do you want a Black History Moment? And Khalid's telling me like, man, I want to do Maya Angelou. I hadn't even thought about doing Maya Angelou.
Every Friday, Mark DeWitt and Deshauna Yamini meet with African American Male Initiative students and kind of talk to them about life and history and their purpose and things like that. So these Black History Moments were an opportunity for them to tell students about themselves and who they are.
Kids know Dr. King, they know Rosa Parks, they know just the same people. They know their story. They can regurgitate that over and over again. I believe that Black History Moments lets them know that these are not the only pivotal figures in our history.
More than just a songwriter and singer, Bob Marley was an activist whose music was a soundtrack to revolution and equality on multiple continents.
The marketing genius behind it is the picture references are, draw you in, they draw your attention. And then the fact that, it started with Deshauna and I, who were, these new go-to for students in a lot of ways, and then expanding it to students doing a delivery, it stays bite-sized. It's actual. You can get to us. You can get to these other students that are reading these parts, and it just makes it all accessible.
Angela Davis is more than an active feminist. She's an educator, author, scholar, and most importantly, a fighter. She has continued to fight for equal opportunities for all people of all races, creeds, classes, and sexual classifications.
It gives me a strong sense of pride. With me being in my early 20s, I am forming my own identity, and I'm using that through the lens of my ancestors. So learning more about their history, so when it's my time to lead, I can establish things for future generations.
Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Jamaican political leader, publisher, entrepreneur, orator, and proponent of the Pan-Africanism movement, was born in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica on August 17, 1887. In 1914, after being inspired by Booker T. Washington's book, Up From Slavery, Garvey was inspired to create the Universal Negro Improvement Association with the goal of unifying people of African descent worldwide into one great body to establish country and government of their own.
It's meeting them where they are, right? Understanding that there's still an incredible amount of academic and social value in it, but it's also condensed into a form that is easily digestible. So you can use these as conversation pieces, you can take this into the classroom, you can incorporate it in multiple assets and facets of your life without really having to break stride, because it's already something that you're doing anyway. So being able to cross that Rubicon, if you will, between pertinence and social relevance, this is the perfect vehicle for that.
Today's Black History Moment, Betsy Coleman. Betsy Coleman was an American aviator and the first woman of Native American and African American descent to earn international pilot's license.
Well, they're little snippets. They can range anywhere from maybe 2 minutes. I think we've had some that cross over into 5 or 6 minutes, depending on what we're talking about at the time.
Born Eunice Kathleen Wayman on February 21st, 1933, in Tryon, North Carolina. Eunice Kathleen Wayman became also known as Nina Simone.
The way that it's coupled with someone speaking about the individual or about the time period or about what's going on, coupled with the visual representation of those times, I think allows a student or anyone really to get the information but not be so overwhelmed.
I found it very enlightening to look back at history that I had no clue had ever happened. One really impactful video to me was on the Green Book, which was a travel guide for African Americans like before the Civil Rights Movement, on where they could go that was safe, highlighting especially like the sunset cities or towns that they weren't allowed to visit after sunset, and I had no clue. We didn't learn that in our history.
It's not boring. I think sometimes when you're talking about topics or people that have made such an impact, it can be overwhelming to just listen to somebody talk. So having that break up with the visual representation as well as somebody who is enthused about the topic that they're speaking on makes it a little bit easier to digest, but also sprinkles that little bit of knowledge that I think helps everybody grow into a better individual, professional, or student.
In order to become the comedian he wanted to be, Dick Gregory moved to Chicago, Illinois, joining a new generation of black comics, Nipsey, Russell, Bill Cosby, and Godfrey Cambridge, all of whom abandoned the minstrel tradition that presented weak, stereotypical black characters.
I think that learning about your people and your history is always beneficial, because when you see people that look like you doing things that you want to do, you're more than likely to be able to achieve what you want to do or do what you want to do.
To know your history really means to know yourself. And unfortunately for a lot of black people, we don't really get to know our history until post-secondary opportunities. And so my struggle is that I really feel like P through 12 education really does not affirm and or bring that self-concept to light.
I love them. Like I said, I'm from Africa, but we don't really have that focus on putting the spotlight on black history. So being here in America and seeing that people really take time to appreciate what black culture is, what black history is. So it is really valuable to see that beside everything going on when it comes to political, social, like people still take time to appreciate what has been done in the past by a minority group. So to me, it's very powerful.
I think it's wonderful. I think for a college to do something and take an undertaking like this on to present to not only our students, but anybody who happens to be on the Sinclair Facebook page or Instagram page, looking through to get that information and to know that a college is wanting to include all of their students.
It was just short information about stories that I hadn't heard before, given in about 2, 3, 4, even maximum 5-minute videos covering the whole history about a whole person, a whole situation, a whole family that I had never heard of before. So it was really eye-opening. It was great to see the pictures that went alongside it, the historical pictures to kind of compare them to. It was really eye-opening.
We do such a great job, I feel, with the diversity on campus, but this series in particular, because it is so close to my heart, is wonderful to see, and the fact that anybody can access it and learn a little bit more about something you didn't know or maybe only knew a little bit about.
One story that really caught my eye was the Henry Box Brown story, and how after his family was sold into slavery, he literally packed himself into a 5x3 box, smaller than that, and had himself shipped into a free state.
Henry asked 2 of his friends from church to help him with his escape plan, which was to ship himself in a box which would travel by train, wagon, and steamboat from Richmond, Virginia to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
These are those small bits that we are sharing, that we are trying to do our part in making sure that individuals have access to this information.
U.S. athlete Tommy Smith would run a world record time of 19.83 seconds in the 200-meter race, earning a gold medal.
This being a part of something dynamic and impactful, and that speaks to a community that I represent. And as a historian myself, it's a natural marriage for me to talk about Black history. Like, this is kind of a month that's tailor-made for my background. Of course, without saying, Black history is 12 months out the year, 365, right? But to be able to be part of an emphasis from the college, right? With the platform that the college has to heighten the regional and as well national awareness of historical figures, moments, movements, I wouldn't pass that up.
Students get a chance to be connected to some useful and not duplicated production of, some meaningful history. And then I think it's in the subject matter we choose and how we go about. Like I said, we're not just cookie cutter Black History Month programming. It's not, it's like, hey, I'm gonna find somebody, off the beaten track.
Claudette Colvin, born September 5th, 1939, is an African-American woman from Alabama. In 1955, at the age of 15, she refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus to a white person in violation of the local law. Her arrest preceded the civil rights activist Rosa Parks on December 1st of 1955 by 9 months.
What made me participate in the Black History Moments is I think it's important that African American history is American history. It's part of the American history that a lot of schools don't educate everyone about. So I think it's important, especially for me, being an African American, that I help tell our story. Because the only way that we can educate and tell our story is we have to do it.
Throughout his lengthy artistic career, Lawrence concentrated on exploring the history and struggles of African Americans. He often portrayed important periods in African American history.
I think that the Black History Moments series is a really good benefit to students and myself because it reminds us of history and we're learning from it, and it's just a good way to set an example for the future and to remind people that we're all equal and that things should never go back to how they used to be.
From 1936 until a few years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, the Negro Motorist Green Book was published to help African Americans find hotels, restaurants, gas stations, and other establishments while traveling during a time when segregation made it difficult and dangerous to do so.
The great thing about it's gone from, a few students to the campus community to the larger community as a whole, where this information is available and accessible for all to see.
So it was like us coming in and educating not only just our students, but the community. There's an opportunity there to do so much with that.
So now here's something that's relevant. It's new, it's cutting edge, it's short. I can share it, and then it takes on a life of its own. We put up one of those videos, Khalil Dorian shares it. At the time, the first year we did it, Kamal was the president. Kamal shares it, he had an incredible network. They're texting a link around more than anything. Here we are 3 years later, and so now students are, oh man, I'm posting about it on Twitter, I can send these links, and it takes on its own, builds steam and just moves around.
It's a different way to learn. Not all learning happens in a classroom, so it's great to just constantly absorb more information especially about our history and what's been going on in the world around us.
My very favorite Black History Moment is the one we did on Dayton's funk music legacy. The reason why I like that one is because the student who shot it, Leakeem Warren, is not shy at all. He loves being in front of the camera, and the camera loves him. And he had a backstory because his parents played in Roger Troutman and Zapp's band. They were, part of the band, so he could add to that because his parents were part of that music legacy.
What inspired me was a while ago, my mother, Janetta Warren, she was she was trying to found the Funk Music Hall of Fame here in Dayton, Ohio. And I know from experience, a lot of people that are my age, around 25 years old, younger, older, they don't know that funk music has originated from Dayton, Ohio, from the grounds we walk on. We are a musical city, and a lot of people just don't know that. What do the Ohio Players, Lakeside, Slave, Phazo, Heatwave, and Zap featuring Roger have in common? They are all legendary funk music bands who began in or around Dayton, Ohio. Funk music, a style based on rhythm and blues, became popular in the late 1960s and 70s. It has a distinct sound, with one of the main elements being the bass guitar. During the 1970s and 80s, Southwest Ohio, most notably Dayton's West Side, became known as a launching pad for the bands whose influences can be heard in today's hip-hop music. The Ohio Players, who formed in Dayton, Ohio in 1959, had a hit song, Fire, which has been the theme song for the TV show Hell's Kitchen, featuring Chef Gordon Ramsay. Zap featuring Roger continued to have major appeal, and their music heavily influenced West Coast rap music. You may recall that Roger Troutman was featured on the song California Love with Tupac and Dr. Dre. Roger Troutman was known for using the talk box, a device used to create different vocal sounds. The device is now referred to as auto-tune for the young kids out there. My father, Michael Warren, was a trumpet player for Zap featuring Roger. And my mother, Janetta Boyce, the first lady of Zap, y'all, sang lead vocals for the band. Since Dayton truly is the land of funk, it is now home to the Funk Music Hall of Fame and Exhibition Center. My name is Leakim Warren, and this has been today's Black History Moments. It makes me feel great. It really does make me feel great. It brings joy to me knowing that I was one of the people that helped start kind of that little fad of, okay, let's learn about our culture. Let's go ahead and put it out there. We're not just Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, former President Barack Obama. We're not just that. There's so much more, and we have so many different voices who could tell those things, who could share their knowledge, share other people's knowledge about our culture. So it was just exciting. And for me to feel like a pioneer of that type of thing, it's a great feeling.
The more these stories are told, the more all of us feel a part of this American experience.
I think it does reach out to those even younger ages who will see this video and be like, hey, I didn't know who that was. I didn't know who Jacob Lawrence was. So yeah, I think it reaches out to all students and all people, of all ages.
I love the one that I believe Mark shot, or he filmed, about Gordon Parks. I think that was beautifully done. I also liked Patricia Bath. I was able to research Dr. Bath's work. I had never heard of her before. And she is an amazing lady and just, owns a patent, just did amazing things. So that was a great one. The one on redlining, because a lot of people didn't know that. And the 1968 Olympic Power Fist. I liked it because it showed that athletes have been activists for a very long time.
Today, for our Black History Moment, we're going to talk a little bit about the father of Negro Leagues baseball, Rube Foster. Jackie Robinson is considered by many to be the African American who had the greatest impact on the integration of baseball. This opinion is of course understandable because Robinson broke the color line in 1947 and is well known in circles far removed from baseball. But perhaps the person with the greatest impact upon African American baseball is the less renowned Andrew Rube Foster. Negro Leagues baseball is something I'm passionate about. Many of those players were players that I read about. Rube Foster is kind of the father of Negro Leagues baseball. Negro Leagues teams were playing years before that because of segregation. They had to be successful, form their own leagues. And Rube Foster was an outstanding businessman, a Hall of Fame player also, who in Kansas City, Missouri, designed and developed this league so that black baseball players had an opportunity to play at a very high level and also entertain fans. And the fans, probably one of those stories that people don't necessarily think about is the fans were white and black. So there were tons of white people who came to watch Negro League games because the talent level was so outstanding.
Last year I had a student do Sammy Davis Jr. He didn't even know who he was. Mr. Entertainment. Like, who doesn't know Sammy Davis Jr.? But that's a 43-year-old's opinion. And so it brought it back to the light. He read about him. He came back the next day and told me something I didn't know about him. And so it sparks that curiosity and makes them dig a little deeper to find out what else is there.
So I covered Sammy Davis Jr., entertainer. He was really, I can honestly say, the Michael Jackson of his time. So he was really a great leader, I should say, not just in the realm of entertainment.
It was really exciting and fun for me because as an undergrad, I actually did a paper on the Harlem Renaissance, so I got to relive some of that. But it was awesome. The theater and history, the literature that came out of that period was awesome. It was a time of growth and I don't know how to say it, but it was just like a sense of pride in the African American community, and we expressed it so vividly in music, art, literature, everything, and it literally kind of went right along with the Roaring 20s, and it shaped a lot of the music that you see today, the film that you see today, the literature that you're reading today, all have elements of that time period.
These students are getting this amazing opportunity to really not only just spotlight themselves, but they're also getting the experience to see what is it like to be in front of a camera? What is it like to articulate myself? What is it like to be authentic and, to be able to laugh, but to feel confident in the words that you're saying? So, through this very minuscule, micro idea in the sense of like, oh, we're just going to record some things. We're giving these students some experiences that they may not have had previously. So I definitely have to thank Sinclair as an institution for doing that.
I have a lot more appreciation for my forefathers and foremothers and everybody that's coming behind me and future generations. I have a lot of pride in everything about being black, like everything. I just think that, for me, I think it just makes me a better person knowing that there may be stuff that keeps me down, but I can still rise above it.
I think the Black History Moments benefit students a great deal. Not only does it benefit students, it benefits faculty, staff, and administrators. It's showing not only our students, but it's showing our peers that we are invested in our strategic plan of the equity, inclusion, and diversity, and that we're stepping outside the box. We realize that we have come a mile, but we need to also keep going an extra 5 miles and meet everyone where they're needed.
This series could definitely benefit the students. It's a different way to learn. Not all learning happens in a classroom, so it's great to just constantly absorb more information especially about our history and what's been going on in the world around us.
Younger folks don't tend to look at history. We just focus on what's in the future, what we want to do. And to me, if you want to get to where you want to be in life, you have to really look up in the past and see how far you have gone yourself, but like why you are in the place you are today, because other people have done things that in one way or another has impacted your life and give you the opportunity to be where you are right now. So to me, it's very important to look at those moments and those people in order to give you the strength and the right mindset to get where you want to be in life.
I feel like we don't really take the time to understand each other's culture and our histories and what we really came from. The history books only tell us so much, and until we really crack down and look into the nitty-gritty of what was hidden in our past, we don't really understand what it was like for other cultures and races back in the day and the struggles that they went through. And I think it's really enlightening and kind of helps us understand each other a little better.
I think that is great to get people who don't know this information to know this information and to come together. And I think in essence it does bring everybody together because we'll all have the same information, and this is all our history.
The impact on the students, a lot of times, what we do with the speaker series, with the Black History Moments, with the, everything is intended one way or another to inspire. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be deep rooted in higher education theory or, have some doctor's name on it. Some of it is the minute.
The role that people of color have played in the building and founding of this country. And it strengthens all of us by knowing these stories. It doesn't take away from anyone. So we had Steve Pemberton on campus last week, and something that was profound that he said is, these stories are about change, and change in the narrative of what we talk about in history. Change doesn't mean erase. We're not erasing anything. We're giving information that is true, that includes everyone's story.